Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Village of Bartlett Committee of the Whole for November 18, 2025. I ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Betterman?
Here.
DEYNE?
Here.
Gansey?
Here.
Hopkins?
Here.
Laporte?
Here.
Swansky?
Here.
President Gunstein.
Here. That'll take us to our town hall portion of the meeting. If anybody would like to address the board, please do so by filling out a form, stepping up to the podium. State your name and address, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. If anybody would like to address the board, please do so.
David Bassani?
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is David Bessania. I'm owner of the town liquor. I'm running the town liquor since almost 15 years in community. Thanks to everybody for supporting me. Especially I thanks the Bartlett community because they're supporting very much to me. And I'm running the business without any complaints since 15 years. And so far, I'm participating in all community events, this and that. And still, when I heard first time that Bartlett Mart came here, so I was just surprised. And after 3, 4, 5 months, now he's applying for the liquor license. So I don't know how many liquor license we need. Village has enough liquor license. If you see only in the downtown to sell the packaged liquor, there is like a CVS sell, the LD sells, Armanati sell, me sells. By putting the more license and more thing, I don't know how it's going to help us and what is the idea behind that one. Because I'm already in the trouble. My business is this year around 30% down. Plus I have not taken since 5, 6 months any salary. I'm trying to reduce the employee too. And still, more the business comes, then it will give the more trouble to me. Ultimately, somebody has to go out of business. I'm just front of the village, and if you wanted to see like a big building empty, that's one of the option. It's you guys have making the village decision, so you have more idea how to support the business, what to do. So this is my main concern. By putting the more license, more people, nobody was going to come from the Schaumburg and buy the liquor over here. Nobody will come from Naperville to buy the liquor over here. Basically, we are sharing whatever we have it. And in case of packaged liquor, there is nothing specific. People buy whatever absolute they can buy in my store, they can buy at Jewel, they can buy there. There is nothing specialty. So, only concern with village is how many more license you wanted to put it, or everybody can sell the liquor, then we should give to everybody license. Why we should go in committee or something like that? Yeah, because bank tomorrow asks the bank, okay, we wanted to sell the liquor, so they can sell. If barber shop care, they can sell the liquor. So this is my main concern. By putting the more license, is not going to help to village, me, or whatever it is. So it's up to you guys committee, whatever you decide, but this is my concern.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for listening me.
Anybody else that would like to address the board? Please do so by stepping up to the podium.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is DEYNE Patel. I bought in July of this year the Bartlett Town Center. I'm the
What's your address?
I'm sorry?
Your address.
Oh, my address?
We need your address for the record, yes.
Oh, 217 South Main Street, Bartlett. Yeah. So I'm the new owner of the Bartlett Town Center, and David is one of my tenants. So he approached me like a few weeks ago. He got a notice there's a new liquor license they're approving. And when I bought in July, I met each tenant. He was one of the tenants. And he informed me that his business, they are down and his lease is getting expired like next year. And he might not renew or something. And then after this new liquor license he heard, he approached me that, it's going to be hard for him. So I'm here to support him. And the new, the Food and Mart, I think I attended last meeting, and they're going to sell 50% liquor, 50% grocery. 50% liquor is like almost like a liquor store. And it's only like a block away from this David liquor store. So there's a 2 liquor store. So I think it's going to affect his business. He's going to have a hard time to pay his rent. And that will affect my business. So I'm here to support him. So after you guys decide, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Do you mind if we step up and just address those comments? We didn't fill out
Are you the petitioner?
I'm an attorney,
You can step, we're going to call it under the standing committee report, so when we do, you guys can step up and talk at that point. Anybody else like to address the board? All right. That'll close our town hall portion and take us to standing committee reports. Building and Zoning Committee, Chairman Hopkins.
Thank you, President Gunstein. There's 2 items on our agenda. The first is 2025-8, the Bartlett Mart. The petitioner is requesting a special use permit to allow packaged liquor sales at 331 South Main Street, Unit A. The Bartlett Mart convenience store opened earlier this year and is now requesting to sell beer, wine, and liquor. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed the petitioner's request at their November 6, 2025 meeting. During the public hearing, the owner of Town Liquor and Food and the owner of the Bartlett Town Center opposed the request for packaged liquor sales due to the proximity of the existing business with packaged liquor sales. The P&Z Commission motioned to approve the special use permit, but it failed 4-1 vote. Concurring votes of 5 members is required to pass a positive recommendation. With that, I will ask our committee if they have any questions.
I do. So first, I don't think it's like noted in here, but there was 3 people missing that night during planning and zoning, correct? So if we had 3 more people, it could have been different. Do we know they just were absent that night?
They were absent for various reasons.
Okay. I'm just going to say I disagree with the findings of the planning and zoning when one person makes that decision. It's my stance that we treat businesses the same and that competition is not a reason to deny a liquor license. 2 years ago, June 1st, 2023, planning and zoning had people come in to speak about competition, and they turned the people away saying that is not what we're here to decide. We don't take competition into our vote. So I think that we need to treat all of our businesses the same in this free market, and that making an example of one small business is not the right way to go.
Have we ever turned down a liquor license of this request? Or has the planning and zoning ever denied a request?
We have had other motions fail to pass before the planning and zoning for the special use permit, not for the liquor license.
Also to clarify, 4 of us will need to vote yes on this for it to pass, correct?
Correct, 4 trustees.
So could there have been, when there's 3 people missing, I know it's legal that we could go, but could someone have said, hey, could we hold off on this until we have more people when one vote makes a difference?
The petitioner can always request to not have the vote. So we never know how planning and zoning is going to vote until they actually make the vote.
Did the petitioner know that they could make that request to not have the vote?
No, the petitioner did not know that, and until the petitioner arrived at the hearing, we didn't know that there was going to be people that were going to be missing from the committee that.
With that, you said you would like to make some comments?
I'm sorry, I could not hear the answer.
The petitioner is going to step up to the microphone.
Thank you.
If you could just state your name and your address.
Herman, H-O-E-R-M-A-N. I am the attorney for the petitioner. The answer to the question was, no, we didn't know we could make that request. And additionally, When we arrived at the committee hearing, we didn't know there was only going to be 5 members present until the meeting actually started. So we were unaware of how many votes could potentially be cast at that meeting.
Thank you.
Would you like to add anything else?
Do you want to add anything? Okay.
Yeah. My name is Sasikan Patel. I'm talking about the Bartlett Liquor Mart. They're saying 50% liquor, 50% liquor. I'm not putting 50% liquor. I'm open the convenience store for beer, liquor, wine, and everything. It's not I'm not focused on liquor. He just tried to liquor license. I'm open the convenient mart, mini mart, family neighborhood store. I have everything in my store. It's not only liquor. Every customer is coming and say, hey, when you don't have beer, the wine, whatever customer like it, they ask me for a convenience store product. Before I'm just before I open the store, I asking Mr. Jelaski, can I open the liquor store? He said no. You can. Then I asking can I open the mini mart? Then I get the permission for the Jelaski. Then I open the convenience store. I'm not focusing on business down or anything. I want to be nice and doing. I want to be do business small thing, and not I'm focusing his business down on liquor. I asked in the planning and zoning before, can I open the liquor? They said no. I'm like, okay, don't mind. I don't want to be liquor store. I want to be a family convenience store. So I'm opening the convenience store for beer and wine, the liquor for whatever was in the planning. I'm not focusing only open the big liquor store.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Is there anyone up here that has any more comments?
I would like to say something, please.
Sure.
On Route 59, we have a liquor store that's just north of Stearns. We have a liquor store that's just south of Stearns. We have a Walmart, and across the street we have a BP. I don't understand why we're all of a sudden trying to determine whether people should be able to succeed or fail in a market.
So, and I want to clarify, the petitioner was not told he could not open a liquor store or convenience store. When he initially submitted plans, I reviewed the plans on March 29th of 2024 and said, please indicate what items will be located on the shelving so staff can determine if this is a convenience store or packaged liquor store. Staff needs to determine what special use permit is necessary.
Thank you.
How long ago did we add the liquor license to CVS? Because that passed, right, obviously?
I mean, does anyone up here have any concerns with sending this to the village board for a vote?
No.
No.
Well, yeah, we're not here to vote. We're here to send this on to the village board for a vote. So if anyone has any concerns with that.
Well, I don't think we have really any choice at this point. I mean, if we have concerns, we would bring it up at the time that we have to vote on it.
Well, you could, but you could also bring up concerns now so the petitioner could deal with those concerns, or you can bring it up when you vote.
Why was this brought back to committee instead of going right to the board?
I think we typically do that, but
After
you can ask
P&Z?
Ms. Stone.
Yeah, we typically bring projects back to the committee after the planning and zoning recommendation, just so you can discuss what their recommendations were. Unless it was a unanimous vote and something that you've indicated the first time you saw a project at committee, that's typically the only time we go directly to board.
Okay.
Do any of the trustees have any questions for the petitioner?
Are you going to sell, is this going to be like a convenient store? Yeah. Like a, for lack of better, sell like a 7-Eleven or something?
Yeah, 7 is the same, all the same.
I think what,
He's already operating down there with all the convenience items except for beer,
beer.
wine, and liquor.
I think what trustee Daney's trying to ask is if that you get approval for liquor, you're going to continue to keep it as a mart for milk and other items that, you know, people need locally. It's not going to morph into just a liquor store. I think, is that what you're trying to ask?
Correct, thank you.
I keep like all of the grocery and everything.
Trustee Hopkins?
How many square feet is this unit?
It
2,180.
All right. If there's no objections, we'll send this on to the village board for a vote at the next village board meeting.
All right.
Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is 2025-12, 200 Primrose Lane. The petitioner is requesting a variation to allow an increase in the maximum impervious surface coverage from 35 to 40 to allow the patio to remain that was constructed without a permit. This looks all pretty straightforward to me. Does anybody have any concerns with this? Then we'll forward this on to the village board for a final vote at our next meeting. That's all I have under building and zoning tonight.
Thank you, Chairman Hopkins. Public Works and Golf Committee, Chairman Daney.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have the 2025 water and sewer rate presentation, and I see someone stirring in the audience.
I could go ahead and introduce them if you would like. We've got Dave Hyder and Cole Sullivan with Stantec. They're going to do the presentation on the water and sewer rate study. I also sub-consultants Jeff Freeman and Michelle Petrowski with Engineering Enterprises.
Great. Well, good evening. Both an audit and a water and sewer rate study on the same night as you're asking for it. But we'll try to keep this interesting. Again, my name's Dave Hyder with Stantec. We're going to take you through the comprehensive water and sewer rate study that we've completed for the village. And we have a lot to cover, so I'm going to jump right in.
Am I going to need some caffeine?
We'll try to keep you awake. No.
Yeah, as we drink our bottled water.
Perfect. All right. So our discussion this evening is I'm going to take you through just an overview of the rate study process. We'll talk then about the financial plan, the cost of service results. We'll look at some rate structure alternative analysis, compare you to some other villages, and then wrap up with some recommendations. So just in terms of the overall rate study process, we think it's helpful to kind of frame how we think about a rate study, and it's really three questions that we ask. The first is, how much? What's the financial plan? How much revenue do we need to collect to fund the water and the sewer systems? We're looking at over a 10-year projection period, so that's the first step, and that's what I'll take you through. And the next question is, from whom? So what does it cost to serve your various classes of customers, whether that be residential versus commercial or industrial, or given the fact that you have different service on the sewer side, different county service, we look at from whom we're collecting. And then the final step is, how do we collect it? How do we actually structure the rates? What's the fixed charge? How do you charge the volumetric charge? And making sure that we're equitably allocating the costs. So that first step, in terms of the financial plan, what we do here is we do have a financial model that we look at over a 10-year projection period. We've got a model for the water system and the sewer system. Both the systems operate as enterprise funds, so that means they're fully self-supporting. The revenues you collect from water rates and from sewer rates have to fully fund the operations and maintenance of the water and sewer systems. So the first step we do in the financial plan is we identify the revenue requirements, and that's really what does it cost to operate and maintain the water and the sewer systems. We forecast that out over a 10-year period, and that includes your day-to-day operations and maintenance cost, any capital investments, so reinvestments in the system. It could be paying off existing debt that you've borrowed to fund capital projects in the past. So that gives us a forecast of expenditures. We then do a forecast of revenues. So we look at a forecast of system demands. How are your customers using water? How many new customers do you have on the system? And we develop a forecast of the revenues at your existing rates. Then we can compare the revenue requirements to those revenues to see if you have revenue sufficient to cover your expenses. And if you don't, are we going to fall below our reserve targets? That was mentioned earlier. We have a minimum reserve we want to maintain within each fund. And also, we want to make sure we're meeting our debt service coverage requirements. So when you issue debt, there are certain requirements you have to meet in order to satisfy and demonstrate that you can pay your debt. So in terms of the financial plan assumptions, we do have to make some assumptions because we're forecasting out over a projection period, a 10-year period, as I mentioned. The first assumption, we're using the fiscal year 26 budget as our starting point for both water and sewer. And then by each individual line item, we forecast that forward, looking at the historical inflation factors as well as perspective in terms of what we anticipate your operating and maintenance costs to be. We also look at capital improvement projects and the funding of those projects. Some of them are cash funded, so from current revenues or reserves, and some of them may be debt funded. And then we're also assuming a modest growth in customers based on historical changes in growth in the village. But we have seen a gradual erosion in the usage per customer from conservation. So overall, we're forecasting water sales to be flat. Even though you have growth in customers, they keep using less water. In terms of the water side, some of the cost drivers, the biggest expense on the water side operationally is the purchase of water from DuPage Water Commission. So the increases that you see from them. You do have some existing debt service, about $1.1 million. We're forecasting that to grow over time. And then in the capital improvement plan, that's a real big driver, particularly on the water system side, the reinvestment in the system, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. On the sewer side, it's your operational costs. You do have some debt service. You've got about $2.6 million in annual debt service payments. And then you've got a capital improvement plan that's about $2 million per year. So I mentioned I would talk about capital, and particularly on the water side, this is extremely important. We were given, the village provided us your adopted CIP, so your capital improvement plan. That looked out over a 5-year period. And our engineering consultants, EEI, did evaluate that plan and looked at the planned spending over the next 5 to 6 years. Within that plan, it was about $20 million. So we're looking at 2026 to 2030. It's about, 2031. It's about $21 million. They looked at each of the capital expenditures, and one of the items that I want to spend a little bit of time talking about was the investment that was planned for your water main replacement. The village has about, I know it's really small up there, you've got about 208 miles of water mains that are obviously buried underground. Tremendous investment that you've made, millions and millions of dollars to have the water mains installed. Today it costs about $2.7 million per mile of water main to replace it. And in your adopted CIP, you've got programmed about $2.5 million worth of capital for water main replacement. So that would mean that you could replace about a mile of pipe over the next 5 years. So if you extrapolate that forward, that would say, given the fact that you have about 200 miles of pipe, that would say that given that level of investment, you're assuming your pipes are going to last about 1,000 years. We know that's not the case. Pipes don't last that long. You have a significant number of pipes. I think you got about 60 miles that are between 31 and 40 years old. So one of the big recommendations coming out of the analysis was that you need to increase the investment in water main replacement. We recommend going to an industry standard where you're doing 1% or 2 miles, assuming a 100-year useful life of pipe. So that would mean on an annual basis, you'd be investing about $5 million in water main replacement. You also have programmed in your CIP some meter replacement programs, which will help with some non-revenue water loss. And then you also have a 1.5 million gallon elevated storage tank costing about $10.5 million. But
Back one slide really quick.
Sure.
Sewer. Maybe it was 2 slides, or the 2.6 million of debt service for sewer. Is that Cook or DuPage?
I think that's combined in terms of the total.
Why isn't it broken down?
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I don't know if Matt, if you know that.
I believe we have it later on, but it's IEPA loan and the DEYNE loan, so it's both combined, I believe.
I think for just transparency and ease of information, in all slides, it should be separated, debt service. So we understand, like, because there's totally different rates per town.
It's broken down later in the presentation.
Yeah, we do have it separated out once we get into the cost allocation.
I think it should be broken down in every slide and determined that it's separate. And also, just out of curiosity, while we're on sewer really quick, I know Bartlett doesn't have a separate budget for their treatment plant. Do other municipalities that you deal with that have split counties, do they have separate budgets?
I'm not sure I follow the question. A separate budget for the,
Yeah, separate,
oh, just a separate, within the budget is,
correct.
no, that you typically would have a sewer fund, which would have your operational
Be
costs.
mixed between both,
Typically,
you typically see?
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
no problem. All right. So, and I apologize, it's really small on the screen, but this is the forecast for the water fund. And what we're showing here is basically a 5-year projection, and this is from the financial model. I can try to help orient you here. What we're looking at is up at the top, we've got the fiscal year starting 27 through 31. And this plan is just what happens if we don't adjust water rates. So 0% increases in water rates. One of the key items we look at is your debt service coverage, which we want to maintain at least 1.25. You can see without any increases in water rates that we would fall below those numbers in 2029 and 2030. It also shows the typical residential bill, which is currently $59. And then some of the dynamics are shown down below in terms of some reporting out on how the fund would do. So the operating fund, this is where we were talking earlier about trying to maintain a minimum cash balance. You can see without increases in water rates that we would drop below that minimum balance, and essentially we would exhaust the balance within the fund by 2030. And the primary reason for that is because the cash in, shown here on the next graph, is less than the cash out on an annual basis. Down at the bottom, you can just see the capital improvement plan. I will mention this is the current adopted capital improvement plan, so it doesn't include any additional investment, so addressing the water main replacement. So if we wanted to just fund your current capital improvement plan, the increases that are shown here would be an 8% increase in water rates in fiscal year 27, 5, and then 3% in 29, 30, and 31. That would allow you to maintain that minimum cash balance, your debt service coverage would still be met, and your cash in and cash out would be more in alignment. What we're recommending this evening is that you move towards that 1% replacement of water mains. So that would again allow you to fund $5 million per year in water main replacement. In order to fund this plan, we would need to do 8%. So 8% increases from 27 through 31. You can see you'd meet your minimum cash balance, and again, your cash out versus your cash in would be in alignment, and you would be funding that more significant capital. So again, 8% increases in water rates. On the sewer side, in terms of the capital improvement plan, it was also evaluated by EEI. Ultimately, it was determined that the programmed funding was adequate in terms of the reinvestments that are required in the system. So that includes basically $1 million a year in sanitary sewer rehab, lift station generator repair, and other maintenance across the collection system. And you can see the annual investment amounts.
Do the sewer and water lines have the same lifespan?
What was that again?
Does the sewer and water lines have the exact same lifespan, 100, as you say, 100 years?
Well, ductile iron, we estimate about 60 years. PVC, I think the life is still to be determined, but yeah, I'd say it's probably similar.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, there's rehab that you can do on the sewer side that you really can't do on the water side, or not as easily. So you can you can line sewer pipes, which allows you to kind of repair them in place, whereas water, generally, you're having to replace the line. So there are things you can do on the sewer side. So in terms of the financial plan results, on the sewer side, again, funding the capital improvement plan that I've talked about. If we don't do any rate increases, we do see some issues in terms of coverage in the outer years. We wouldn't fall below our cash target until 2030, and then we would be below, actually negative cash within the sewer fund by 2031. So again, with no increases, it really wouldn't be sustainable in order to reinvest in the system. And so what we're recommending this evening would be 5% increases in sewer rates over the next 5 years. That would allow you to maintain those minimum cash balances as well as the debt service coverage. So to wrap up the financial plan, again, revenue increases are needed from rates beginning in fiscal year 27, as well as in future years in order to meet debt service coverage to allow you to maintain the system and make those reinvestments. Really think it's really important in terms of having a sustainable system is reinvesting in the system. I've talked about the recommended increases, 8% on water, 5% on sewer over the next 5 years. As we transition now into cost of service and rate design, the customer bill impacts will vary based upon the rate structures we're going to be talking about. But we do recommend that the village look at this internally on an annual basis to make sure if you were to adopt the recommended increases that you're performing according to the plan. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Cole Sullivan, to talk about cost of service and rate design.
Thank you all. Thank you all for letting us speak with you tonight. So the next part we want to talk about of this rate study is our cost of service component. So this is where we are looking at those revenue requirements that were determined during the financial planning phase, and we are figuring out how we should recover those costs within the different customer classes in the village. So for water, we are looking at the cost for service between the residential customers, the industrial customers, and the non-residential and other commercial users. For sewer, we're looking at the distinct county rates. So we're looking at the rates for DuPage County, for Cook County, and Kane County. Remote. Yeah, remote went out on me. There we go. So to talk more about the sewer cost of service and mapping how we take the cost of service results into the actual functional rates. So Bartlett provides different levels of sewer service for each customer depending on which county that they're located in. So looking at the graphic off to the left, we have 4 kind of core functions within the sewer system. There's treatment, collection, there are distinct capital costs for Cook County, and there are customer and billing and administrative costs. So treatment, once we determine the treatment cost and eventually treatment unit cost, those were all assigned to customers within DuPage County. For collection, collection services are provided across all 3 counties. All 3 customers get assigned those costs. For Cook County, this is really a debt service related to specific capital projects. Those are allocated towards customers in Cook County.
Do you know what projects those are?
It's the Devon X's flow plant.
Do you know what it does?
What the Devon X's flow plant does, I would probably turn that over to Dan to talk about that a little more.
You knew. You're the consultant, right? I was just curious.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist anymore, so.
Well, I'm asking him.
Yeah, the excess flow plant, it's part of the collection conveyance system that brings, flows from Cook County into the, the rest of the Bartlett sewer system. So just to wrap up this slide, so each customer in the county pays a certain combination of their charges depending on the level of service provided in each county. So in our cost of service study, we look at the different functions and determine the cost of each of those functions and allocate them to the customer classes and compare them to how much revenue you're collecting from each of these classes currently. So sewer, this is our chart off to the right. We see that generally Bartlett is collecting from each county what our cost of service would support, and these rates are generally in alignment. For water, we see some misalignment of revenue between the customer classes, and our rate structure modifications will work to bring the revenue collected from each class towards those cost of service modifications. So once we determine the amount of revenue we should collect from each class, we look at various rate structure alternatives to figure out the rate components. This is our fixed charges and our volumetric charges. So in our rate design, we think about a few different pricing goals and objective. The first is customer affordability. We want the village to be providing service at an affordable price for the customers. The second objective is rate and revenue stability. So this is really thinking of the perspective of the utility. We want to limit volatility in annual revenues, make sure we are getting a certain portion of the revenues from fixed charges each month, as well as make sure we are smoothing out our revenues over time to decrease volatility and rate adjustments. All of these recommendations are cost of service based, so we want to maintain alignment between the use of service and what is billed to the customers. With all of these, they need to be able to be administrated both by the utility as well as legally defensible and complying with industry standards. These are all things we considered in our rate design. So currently, the water rates do not have a base charge. There is a minimum charge of 2,500 gallons per user. And all users, regardless of customer class, whether they're residential, non-industrial, or industrial, pay a uniform rate of $12.60 per 1,000 gallons. So one of our observations here is the minimum bill is the same regardless of potential use of the system, and there's no cost recovery based on the potential use of the system. So we want to recommend a rate structure that charges fixed charges based on meter size and captures some of the capacity of each user.
Is that an observation that that you make for most of your clients? Has that been changing?
Yeah, it's generally a consistent industry practice that you try to scale charges according to each capacity user. So, large users, you want them to kind of have a fixed charge that is, higher than a smaller user because they have to have more capacity on the system.
Thanks.
Okay, so our first recommendation as it relates to the water base change is to transition from a minimum bill to a base charge. So we would be getting rid of that 2,500 gallon minimum threshold, and every customer would pay a fixed monthly charge scales by their meter size, which this is consistent with industry standards to kind of align with the availability of service and the capacity of each user. For the volumetric usage rate for water, we looked at two alternatives for the residential class. The first is to maintain a uniform residential rate. So similar to what they pay now, they would pay a set rate for every unit of use. Our second alternative would be to look at a tiered rate structure for single-family residential customers. So this would be for their first 3,000 gallons of use, they would pay a certain rate that we'll show here on a following slide. And then for their next 3,000 gallons of use, they'd pay a different rate. And then finally, all use would be captured in a third tier at a third unit price. This is really to enhance the conservation incentive. We want users to be thoughtful about how they are using the commodity. We maintain alignment in the cost of service. So this is still making sure we're collecting the appropriate amount from the residential class and not necessarily thinking of it as a surcharge type. For the industrial and non-residential users, so we will recommend doing the base charge scaled by meter size. In both scenarios we look at, they maintain the uniform usage rate and align with cost of service for these classes. So in our first proposed alternative for water, we're looking at recovering 20% of total rate revenue from the base charge. So on the table on the right, users at the 5/8 inch and 3/4 inch meter size would pay a base charge of $15.47. And then there are scaling factors that we have in our industry based on kind of the capacity of each of these meters that essentially act as a multiplier from that initial unit fee of $15.47. So for our For the volumetric rates, all three classes in this scenario would pay $11.40. And it's very difficult to see in the chart, but we have our customer bill impacts, and the majority of our users would see between a $0 and $10 increase to their bill in this first alternative. Our second alternative, and this is our recommended alternative for water, is once again, similar to the first alternative, we are scaling the base charge by meter size and collecting 20% of revenue through that base charge. So both alternative 1 and alternative 2, these base charges are the same. For the residential users, this is where we are bringing in that inclining block rate. So for the first 3,000 gallons, they would pay a rate of $9.75. For the next 3,000, so up to 6,000 total gallons of use, they would pay $13. And then all other use would be at $15.75.
Per thousand.
Per thousand, yes, per thousand.
Do we have breakdowns of how many residents use in excess of 3,000 gallons? Or can we get that?
I could probably get that for you.
And then also one quick question. Your base charge for size of service, if a residential customer has a 1-inch line, are they also paying the higher base rate?
Yes.
How many residents have a 1-inch water main? And could we limit it if it's a 1-inch for commercial or industrial, they pay the higher fee, but it doesn't impact a residential user? I just want to see, like, is there 1,000 houses with a 1-inch main? Is it typical to see 3/4? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have the number off the top of my head of exactly how many 1-inch residential meters there are. We could certainly look and follow up with that. Generally speaking, we could look at scenarios where all residential users would pay the $15.47. It is perhaps a bit more typical if they have that higher meter. Normally they have been sized that for a certain reason, and we still want to reflect that additional availability and capacity and paying this 1-inch base charge.
I understand your concern. I just think, like, if we are going to charge $13 per 1,000 gallons, and they do have a 1-inch and they're using more water, they'll get hit with that. I don't want to see a double whammy for our residents.
Yeah, understood.
So I do have a question on that. So I have a 1-inch water main in my house. So based off this alternative 2, I would get, if I went away for a month on vacation, I would get a bill for the month for $25.79.
Yes, if you use no water, yes.
Okay. And if I used 3,000 or more, I would pay $13 per gallon, $13 per thousand?
So for the first 3,000 gallons you use, you would pay $9.75.
In addition to the $25?
Yeah, in addition to the $25. So
$25 is no matter what.
is no matter what, regardless of how much.
Base charge, that's, okay. I just wanted to make sure, I was just clarifying that.
That's
So it's
correct.
$25 plus the usage.
Correct.
Do you still pay a minimum?
This is in lieu of the minimum.
Correct. This is in lieu of the minimum.
But that guarantees us 20% revenue.
It does. This is similar to what Del Webb does because the residents leave, snowbirds leave, so they had to have a certain minimum to cover their infrastructure. So this is that's common when you have people that go out of town in certain developments. So that's why I was asking.
There's even base charge on electric, right? There's like base charges.
Anything that they have a meter on typically has a base charge.
I have a question. Why wouldn't there be like I see how like the non-residential industrial is 1140. So like, I mean, why is there not like a tier there, especially if it gets really high? Or have you seen that in some communities?
Yeah, it's yeah, go, you want that one?
Like if something's water heavy?
Yeah, generally you don't see that on non-residential because you could have a Home Depot that doesn't use much water, or you could have an industrial that has to use a lot of water with their products. So they're generally going to be, attempt to be as efficient as possible. Whereas when we look at residential, we can say, minimum quantities for indoor water usage are X, and then once you get into those higher tiers, you're most likely using water outside the house, and therefore you have the ability to conserve. So it's very difficult to come up with tiers for non-residential because of the fact that you have broad categories of customers.
Just a side curiosity question, what have you seen like with data centers then?
Data centers?
Water has been like
Uh-huh.
an issue.
Yeah, so you can, there are communities that have peak surcharges based upon, and it gets a little bit more complicated, but you could say if I came in and I bought a 4-inch meter, and there's an associated amount of capacity with that meter, if I'm exceeding the capacity that I purchased, you could then have a surcharge, is the way that I've seen people handling data centers.
Okay.
But the base charges actually become really important with data centers because they don't use water year-round. There's months where they're not using much water at all, and therefore they don't contribute to what they should on the system.
Okay, thank you.
Also take into consideration a industrial building that has a 6-inch water main is typically set up for a sprinkler system, and their actual usage could be substantially less. So though they have a 6-inch water main, they may only be using 3,000 gallons, which could be produced out of a 1-inch or less, or 3/4 pipe. So
I did want to circle back on the 1-inch meter. There are communities that if you require in new building for residential homes to have fire systems and they have to have a 1-inch meter, you could group them into the 5/8, 3/4, and 1-inch and say everybody pays the same. That has been done. It's just you want to be careful to make sure you're not, if somebody put in a 1-inch because they have an irrigation system, we want to make sure we potentially capture that.
So I guess my question's always been, why can't the water rate for commercial and industrial be different than the residential rate?
It could be, but it has to be based on the cost of service. So essentially, under this structure, it is different. We're saying, based upon the loading or the demands that they're placing on the system, they should be paying $11.40, whereas based on the demands that a residential place under this tiered structure, they're essentially paying a differential rate.
Okay, so looking at the rate design and alternatives for sewer, so for current sewer rates, so each county pays a base charge. The base charge is the same for all customers regardless of that potential use of system. So right now they're not scaled by meter size. Currently 50% of revenues on the sewer side are collected in the base charge. So this is a significant portion of the revenues that are collected. To that third point, the base charge is relatively high, especially for residential users, so there might be some affordability concerns that we reviewed in this sewer rate design. The usage rate, so currently DuPage County pays $4.05 per 1,000 gallons for sewer service. The rates shown on this slide for Cook County and Kane County are only what goes or is retained by Bartlett for collection and capital. Cook County is assessed a tax that pays for their treatment services, and Kane County pays their treatment costs through Forward. Or to Forward, I should say, through Bartlett. So for our sewer rate structure alternatives, one of our first recommendations was to improve affordability by some customers. We wanted to lower the target of total revenue collected from the base charge. So we're reducing that target by 10%, from 50% of revenue collected through the base charge down to 40%. We looked at two different alternatives for the base charges. The first one being identical to the current structure, where it's a single base charge for each county, not scaled by meter size. Our second alternative, which is our recommended alternative, is to scale base charges by meter size consistent with those industry standards. For the treatment, collection, and capital charge usage rates, our cost of service informed an appropriate usage rate for each of these components. Once we calculated those components, we allocated them to each of the different counties and did that to create kind of an aggregate usage rate. So our first alternative, once again, we're recovering 40% of revenue from the base charge, and the base charges are not scaled by meter size. This results in a $20.74 base charge for DuPage County, $10.46 for Cook County, and $6.81 for Kane County. DuPage County pays the treatment rate as well as the collection unit rate, which results in a $5.04 volumetric rate per 1,000 gallons. Cook County pays the collection rate as well as the unit rate for capital within the county. And that comes in total to $3.12. And then Kane County would pay the collection rate, which is $2.28. Once again, the majority of customers would see a bill impact between $0 and $10, with a few customers seeing a slight decrease in their bill. So our second alternative, this is our proposed alternative, once again recovering 40% of revenue from this base charge. This time it's scaled by meter size. So for DuPage County, the starting meter size for a 5/8 inch meter would be $18.81. For Cook County, it would be $8.78, and for Kane County, it would be $2.11. In this scenario, the volumetric rates are identical to alternative one, so we're really just evaluating the difference in the base charges scaling by meter size. Overall, similar story, the majority of customers seeing between a $0 and $10 change in their bill, with some customers seeing a slight decrease. And so to wrap up our rate structure recommendations, so for water, we're once again proposing that alternative 2, which is implementing a base charge scaled by meter size, aligned with the industry standards for capacity within each meter size. We recommend modifying the residential volumetric water rates to include that lifeline tier to improve affordability for lower users, as well as provide enhanced conservation incentives. And for our industrial and non-residential users, we recommend maintaining the uniform volumetric rate. For sewer, we also are recommending alternative 2. So this is scaling the base charge by meter size for each county, as well as implementing the cost of service informed treatment, collection, and capital volumetric rates, which are applied to the different counties. We have prepared a few slides now on the bill impacts for some example users, as well as some comparisons to the other utilities in the region, and I will turn it back over to Dave to take us through that.
All right, thanks, Cole. Yeah, so we just wanted to demonstrate, and again, this is going to vary depending upon the type of customer. This is just for a typical residential customer. Your average or your median use for residential customers is 4,500 gallons per month. And so this would be for somebody 4,500 gallons per month, a 5/8 or 3/4 inch meter. You can see for DuPage County that the total bill goes from $97 to about $105. So that'd be about an $8 increase, 7%. $8 increase, about 7% for DuPage. For Cook County, you can see the bill goes from $80 up to about $87. So that would be, again, about an $8 increase. 7.7% increase. And then for Kane County, the total increase, or the total bill goes from $93 up to $95, and so that would be about a $2.03 increase. Again, it's extremely important to remember that this is just for a snapshot of customers. Given what we've done on the sewer side to provide some affordability with the scaling of the base charges, that does help minimize the increases on the sewer bills for your typical residential customer. But if you're a customer that has a larger meter, there is a little bit more of an impact. So this is for a non-residential user, somebody using 10,000 gallons per month, a 1-inch meter. You can see the bill increase in DuPage would be about $32 per month, or about close to 15%, about 15% in Cook County. And then in Kane County, we're looking at about $16, or about 8% increase. But that's going to vary. So if you're a really high user, depending upon how much water you use and your meter size, you would see variations in terms of the customer impacts. So we do have some benchmarking, and I thought about this slide ahead of time. It's not going to be easy to see up on the screen, but benchmarking you against a bunch of other villages and communities in the area. The green lines basically show, the dark green is where your current bill is for Cook, and then you can see under the proposed where Cook would become, and then you can see Kane, the dark green here, and the increase in the proposed. And I'm so far away I can't really see what the numbers are, but ultimately you can see in terms of the bill comparisons, you're in the middle of the range. It's very important to note, though, that the increases that we're showing here are for next year, and these comparison communities are their current rates, and most communities do consider rate increases on an annual basis, so it is a bit of an apples to oranges comparison. But you're still in the middle of the pack in terms of what most of your residents would pay in most of the counties. This is just another breakdown if you wanted to see the sewer portion of the bill and the water portion of the bill, again comparing you to the other jurisdictions. So just to wrap up, as I mentioned earlier, we are recommending that you adopt a 5-year rate plan, given the fact that you need to reinvest in the water system in particular and to maintain sustainability. Again, you're on a current, assuming your pipes are going to last a really, really long time, I think you need to address that. So we are recommending 8% increases in water rates over the next 5 years, 5% increases in sewer rates. This slide here just demonstrates the typical customer's bill over that next 5-year period with those increases. At the same time, we're recommending that you adjust your water and sewer rate structures to align with cost of service. Particularly, as Cole mentioned, we think you should scale your base charges by meter size. If somebody has a large meter, they can demand a lot more on the system, and therefore you have to be ready to serve them, and they should pay more. Modify the residential rate structure to provide that affordability lifeline rate as well as the conservation. Maintain your uniform rate for non-residential, and then go to a cost of service based structure on the sewer side. So with that, we would be happy to take any questions that didn't come up during the discussion.
Does anybody have any questions for Dave or Cole?
I'd like some better news, but
It's a very thorough study.
Very good.
So Dave, does the suggested option, does that jump back to the slide, page 13, that shows, I guess, where are we going to be financially if we adapt this?
Yeah, that does go back to the, I can flip back. It is on page 13 where we are showing the.
Yeah, that's sewer, and then water is probably even before that.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd maintain strong cash balances, you'd meet your debt service coverage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? How many communities have you done this study for in the last 2 years?
This type of study? I would probably say 20.
In this area, in Illinois?
I've done a lot in this area, not in the last 2 years. But I've done really, really small studies. I just wrapped up a rate study for New York City that took 5 years and didn't accomplish much. So a little bit bitter about that one. But yeah, I've worked for Downers Grove and Geneva and all over the area.
Is it standard practice, or is it becoming standard practice that non-residential water and sewer rates differ from residential rates, delivery rate?
I'd say the standard, unless you're doing some type of conservation rate, like we're talking about a different rate structure, most communities maintain the same rates.
They do, okay.
Yep, for residential or non-residential, particularly in this region.
Because I got a water bill from South Elgin, and it says non-residential water rate. That's why I was asking. I just want to know if it's something you've seen. So.
Yeah, it's not super common.
I don't know. I don't know what the residential rate is. I just know what the non-residential rate is. It's $14.65 a thousand. So.
I mean, I will say that most states, and I think this is the case in Illinois, is saying that you can't be arbitrary and capricious in rate setting. So you have to justify based on a cost of service. You have to demonstrate that it costs you more to supply water to a industrial customer versus a residential customer.
Yeah. Does the industrial businesses that we have more wear and tear on our sewer system than the residential?
I wouldn't say they have more wear and tear, but they do require larger mains, so
Okay.
higher costs. That's why we have the higher meter base charge and that type of stuff.
And just out of curiosity, what's our number one water user in town? Is it one of our industrial buildings?
Our largest?
Yeah.
Yes, in Brewster Creek.
Okay.
Didn't one of our industrial users have a lot of wear and tear on our treatment facility? The way that-
Well, we have a food industry in the industrial park that have pre-treatment requirements that we've been working with several of those that has caused odor issues, so we've had to do some additional treatments at like the lift stations to try to control that.
And they've paid for that?
They pay for
They
that.
pay for that every time they get a fine, yes. So it's not like it's a wear and tear on us. We are collecting to maintain that.
That's what the pre-treatment program's for, surcharges for BOD, that type of stuff. Yes, we have to treat that at the treatment plant, but we're getting it up front from the industry.
So a 300,000 square foot storage facility that flushes 10 toilets a day could be paying a water bill right now of under $60, correct?
If they have a 6.
No, you're correct. Your base charges do not scale based on meter size.
Correct. So they would see an increase, rightfully so, for maintaining and having that 6-inch increase. So we would go from, let's just call it $100 to $650 a month. So we would see a direct increase in revenue based off of giving them the 6-inch main, even though they may only have 2 slop sinks and a couple toilets. So
Technically, they shouldn't have a meter that size if they have.
Yeah, if it's fire protection, that's not necessarily metered, because the way it comes in, it'll split off for fire protection, and then the domestic side gets metered.
Correct, okay. All right. Any other questions?
What size is the service main coming into a building like that then? So there's 2 separate services coming in?
A lot of times they'll bring one in, and then they'll go into like a meter room, and they'll branch off for the fire protection, and then branch off from there for where it'll be metered for their use, whether it's industrial, whatever they're using it for.
So if there's a 300,000 square foot building, what size are we charging them? What, is it the pipe physically coming in, or is it the size that is going to the meter?
It'll be, well, what we're proposing is based on the meter that they're actually using the water for.
You could have a 300,000 square foot building and they could have a 1-inch or.
If it's strictly a warehouse and they only have X amount of employees, yeah, they're not using.
That was my point.
Water use is not large on a regular basis. It's more for fire protection at that point.
Correct. So the fire protection requires a certain size of pipe. When it comes into the building, it branches off. The water meter that we supply or they put in is for their metered water for their usage.
I'd like to see what other towns are doing.
That's what they do. I just seen it firsthand. But then the fire suppression is a separate fee, so. But regardless, we would see an increase just in the minimum.
What about implementation for billing? Is that easy? Or is it going to take a long time to change our systems?
So, yeah, I've reached out to Munis.
Tiering specifically.
What's that?
Just specifically for tiering, that seems complicated.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, it seems a little daunting to me. I've been on the job less than a year with water billing, but I have reached out to Munis, which is our ERP system that we do the water billing through, and they've told me this rate structure is doable. I'll schedule a conference call with our IT team to see what it would entail.
Thanks, man.
So how often do we need to review, say we went with alternate 2, do we review it in 5 years or do we review it annually?
We would recommend that Matt would just, on an annual basis, make sure you're performing according to the plan. And then most communities won't do this level of engagement. Every year, they'll wait maybe 5 years and then look again at the cost of service and make sure the rate design still makes sense.
Right. And then, with all due respect, how out of date are we with our billing? With what we're doing now, how out are we?
That's a tough question. There's still a lot of communities that have very simple, like, again, New York City, they don't have any base charges. They just charge a unit rate for water, and then they'll multiply that to collect for sewer. So there are, this is definitely more industry standard. I think it's the appropriate thing to do. Your rating agencies like it. They like to see a certain amount of revenue coming in fixed charges. So it's a bit outdated, but you're not 50 years behind the curve.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for putting it together.
Thank you.
Side question, how close are we to having all the new meters so people can have the app to know where they stand?
I think you're talking about My 360 with the meters. We're actually testing it out right now internally and with some employees that are residents in town. We could set up you if you'd like to do a test run while we're at it. But we're hopefully getting to a point where we can start posting it so residents can start to sign up real soon. As far as the meter program itself, the full meter change out should be done next summer. So.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
So I want to thank you guys for your presentation. Cole, David.
Thank you.
Dan, our treasurer. I know it's a lot of work putting all this together with our staff, Paula. So I know this started, 6 months ago? So, and you too, Tyler, don't worry. So thank you. We have a lot to digest and think about how we want to approach this going forward. So thank you very much.
We appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's
If
it.
not,
That's all we
a
have.
motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee DEYNE, second by trustee Hopkins. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Batterman?
Yes.
Daney?
I feel like I just sat through one of Matt's presentations for the budget. Yes. I'm all in favor.
Gansey?
Yes.
Hopkins? Laporte?
Yes.
Swansky?
Yes.
I thought it was
We are adjourned.
really well done.